There's a lie that shows up after repeated sin, and it doesn't say God isn't merciful. It says he's tired of being merciful to you. Not annoyed at sin in general, tired of forgiving this. Tired of hearing your voice say sorry again. Tired of you, specifically. And if you believe that, you won't storm off from God in some dramatic act of rebellion. You'll just quietly stop coming back. You know this moment. You've sinned again. Same thing, same cycle, same prayer you've already prayed once before. But this time, something else shows up underneath the guilt. Something colder. God has heard this from you too many times now. It doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like honesty. Like you're finally being realistic about how many chances a person actually gets. But look at what that thought is doing. Guilt says something is wrong. This says there's no way back. Guilt points you toward God. This convinces you the door isn't even worth knocking on anymore. And that's what makes it more dangerous than guilt. It doesn't deny God's mercy exists. It just tells you it ran out, for you specifically. Here's the problem. This lie isn't built on nothing. You remember the last time you cried about this. The last promise you made with your whole chest. The last time you told God you were done, and then you weren't done. So the accusation isn't inventing the pattern. The pattern is real. That's what makes it stick. But watch what it does with that material. It doesn't just say you sinned again. You already know that. It says this proves something about how God feels about you now. That's the lie, not the sin. The conclusion drawn from the sin. That repetition wears God down the same way it wears down a person. Which leaves one question worth asking. Where did you learn to picture God like that? You learned it the same place all of us did, from people. People get tired of repetition. Apologize to someone for the same thing enough times, and you can watch the patience leave their face. Eventually, they stop believing you. Eventually, they pull back just to protect themselves. So, somewhere along the way, that became your picture of God too. Patient for a while. Tolerant up to a point. And somewhere past that point, quietly worn out by you. Isaiah 40 was written straight against that lie. The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. Even the young grow tired. Even strong people collapse. But God doesn't run low. His mercy was never a tank that empties. Never human patience stretched thin until it finally snaps. You're weary, he's not. That's not a slogan you put on a graphic. That's the actual correction this lie needs. Now, that doesn't make your sin small. God isn't indifferent to what you keep doing. He convicts. He confronts. He calls his people to actually change. So how do you tell that apart from the voice saying God is tired of you? By where it sends you. Conviction says, come into the light. Accusation says, hide until you're worthy. Conviction leads to confession. Accusation leads to distance, dressed up as humility, like staying away is somehow respectful of how much grace you think you've already used up. Hebrews 4 says the opposite. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Not once you've proven something. In time of need, which is exactly where you are right now. But maybe this was never really about the Father. Maybe what scares you is how Jesus is looking at you right now, after this exact failure. You picture him as a witness, watching the pattern, keeping score, privately unsurprised, privately disappointed. That is not what Scripture shows you. If anyone does sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. An advocate doesn't testify against you. He doesn't sit there exhausted by your file. He stands up for you. Romans asks it straight out. Who shall bring any charge against God's elect? It is Christ who died, more than that, who was raised, who is at the right hand of God, who indeed is interceding for us. The accusation is bringing a charge against you right now. Christ is the one answering it. If you need this in a person instead of a verse, look at Peter. He didn't fail quietly. He denied Jesus 3 times in public, right after swearing he never would. If anyone had reason to believe he'd used up his welcome, it was him. But Jesus didn't restore him from a distance with some vague gesture. He found him, sat with him, asked him one direct question 3 times, once for every denial, and handed him his calling back. Peter's failure was real. It just wasn't the name Jesus put on him. Here's what's actually happening when you stay away. Picture a kid who broke something again, standing outside the door, too scared to go in. Not because the door is locked, because in his head, his father's on the other side, right now, rubbing his face, thinking, "Not again, I can't keep doing this." So the kid waits outside, punishes himself a little first, hopes it'll count for something before he finally goes in. The door was never locked. The father never said those words. The kid is just obeying a version of his father that doesn't exist. That's what accusation does to you. It paints a picture of God on the other side of the door before you've even touched the handle. And you end up obeying the imagination instead of walking through to the real thing. So don't wait until you feel sincere enough. Don't wait until you can bring God a cleaned-up version of yourself. That waiting isn't humility. It's the lie, just wearing a humble face. Say it now, plainly. "Lord, I have sinned. But I've also believed something false about you, that you're tired of me. I'm done standing outside this door. Bring me back to who you actually are." The mercies are new this morning, not because you earned a fresh batch, because they were never the kind that runs out.